didn't we just see this play out in the same manner where a player is trying to get his full value and they haven't received that based on the court's reaction to it?
You could have a feasible system that could be fair across the board for all the major colleges. But that's not what's going to happen. Teams are going to decide to load up at quarterback. They're going to decide to load up with their star basketball player. They may.
So the House settlement is getting a lot of praise because we finally have what feels like some type of system in place with oversight. The last time, correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, the last time we felt like we had oversight or, something of that matter, the Supreme Court said in a 9-0 vote, you don't.
You have nothing and you'll like it.
With antitrust and the portion of this with the oversight committee, the clearinghouse, Chad, I get the whole okay, we need to see what's fair market value. Like you don't want a booster that owns a car dealership to be like, hey, quarterback, here's $500,000 to show up for an hour because I have the resources to do it. When that's really not the fair market value for what that would be worth. That's true. But it's also what someone's willing to pay that player. And with that in mind, Chad, isn't that a violation of antitrust? I see that and I think, didn't we just see this play out in the same manner where a player is trying to get his full value or her full value and they haven't received that based on the court's reaction to it? Now, a judge did sign this, and it took time. So, there could be more language within that. I'm no lawyer here. But I'm pretty sure lawyers will be arguing this.
Yeah, look, a lawyer can argue anything, right? So we know that someone's going to argue something about how this is going to go down. So this College Sports Commission is interesting for a number of different reasons. I think the ability to oversee all the money that's going to change hands in college sports, specifically major college sports.
Yep.
I'm talking about the ones that make a ton of money. Football,
yep.
Men's basketball. That's going to be so difficult to tell what's what in all of this. And here's what I mean by it. In your basic sports structure, in the perfect world of fairness, competitiveness, and everything else that we want to see. And, college athletes not breaking the bank before they become professionals. The perfect formula is you take that $20.5 million and you split it up between the two sports that make money, quite frankly. I see Pat Forty talking to ADs about, we're not going to forget about our Olympic sport athletes. And I'm thinking to myself, those Olympic sport athletes are going to get their $250 gift card to the campus bookstore, and they're going to like it.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to get because their sports don't make any money. So if we want to talk about enterprise, free market, all those things, the sports that make money, if you took the $20.5 million, divvied it up between those two sports and said, okay, here's how we're going to do it and how we're going to make the salary cap work. You could have a feasible system that could be fair across the board for all the major colleges. But that's not what's going to happen. Teams are going to decide to load up at quarterback. They're going to decide to load up with their star basketball player. They may, some schools, let's say Vanderbilt here in Nashville may say, we're going to take $8 million and give it to baseball because we can go win national titles in baseball. We've seen it. We're a baseball school. We're going to spend more there than other sports. Everyone can make their own determination on it. But then once you come to that determination, the second part of this is the one that's going to be impossible to police. And that is NIL on top of the $20.5 million they're going to split up among all athletes. So let's say Jonathan Hutton is a big booster for Texas A&M. And Jonathan Hutton owns a petroleum company out of Nacogdoches, Texas, wherever you want to go, right? But he's a big Aggie guy. Every single school is going to be smart enough to find a way. They're going to try to trick that algorithm. This whole NIL Go format they've set up, this is like an athlete who juices and is on roids, figures out a way to fool the drug test. They're going to fool the drug test every time once they figure out how to fool it. They get the, like what they say in the program, you take the dope urine out, you get the clean urine in.
Clean in the clear.
You take the dope money out, you get the clean money in, right?
Yeah.
So if I want to spend $5 million on my defensive backfield, I can do that and say, now here's how they're going to do it,
Yeah.
and here's how we're going to put the money together, and here's how we're going to launder it and make it legit. So now these athletes may actually have to go to the car dealerships. They may have to go to a symposium about petroleum. They may have to actually work for the companies as was originally intended.
Under contract.
But, I mean, how dumb would you have to be to not be able to fool this system?
I agree. But the problem that I think is still right there, and we've known this, but it's never really been addressed, and I don't know how a collective bargaining agreement gets done unless you need a union. But how do you form a union for the thousands upon thousands of college athletes that constantly rotate in and out, right? Like the NFL, you can have a 10-year vet. You can also have a rookie. In college, you've got a 3 or 4 year player, and then they're on. It's like, so who's representing the player in this? This is an agreement that's going to go. It's going to increase annually, and it's a 10-year partnership. But who said that? Like, who? At some point, the player didn't agree to any of this, and that's the problem to me. Is what are the universities making? They just randomly. This is a settlement for 20.
By the way, I can tell you what they're 20.5, making.
But think
as
20,
of 2024.
But 20.5. That's not just some arbitrary number that they all agreed to and they're happy with because this is a huge step forward, as Greg Sankey said. It is, because we finally have something. But I mean, to me, this is trying to grandfather in some stuff that campuses, universities, going to be paying, and eventually the players. Somebody's going to have to form a system for the player. Well, then you negotiate this because otherwise it fails in court because they're not employees and it's antitrust.
So look,
again, I think that's
I'm
we just
blanking
saw
on
this.
Who exactly. It wasn't Sankey. They had the big Kumbaya Zoom call, which I find hilarious. When you look at the photo of the 80s on the Zoom call. This photo that we have for you, I'm thinking that every single when Greg Sankey starts talking, they all have a look in their eye like, oh my God, well this guy shut the what up, please.
Okay,
this guy again. Why is Teresa Gold talking? Is the Pac-12 still a conference? Is she allowed to speak on this call? Well, I just laugh at these ADs who are rivals that are all having to put up with each other. It's so funny to me to think about what's the inner dialogue of these ADs.
This is why Sankey was so pissed off. Two of them. This is the photo of for the good of the game.
Yes, this is for good of the game.
I mean, this is straight business.
So here's what they're making. All right, Ohio State 2024. They made $251 million in revenue. Okay, so $20 million of that now is going to the players. Okay, that's pretty small and manageable percentage
to across the board
to every athlete.
Right,
20.5. That's the starting block. Right now, keep in mind though, at Ohio State, the number one revenue generating athletic department in America. They only made $26 million in profit. They spent $225 million of that $251.
Yep.
So when people come back and they're like, oh my gosh, they're going to cry poor, ADs are going to have to get frugal with their dollars. They are. They're going to have to cut a lot of employees. They're going to have to slow down on construction projects. The facilities may not be quite as nice as they were. You may not be able to renovate the baseball facility every other year. You may not be able to build the new volleyball facility on campus because those construction costs add up because we're talking profit here, right? So they only made $26 million. $20.5 million of that now would go to the athletes. Texas made $239 million, spent $225. They don't even have enough in profit to pay the 20.5. Now, we all understand Texas will find the money, and they'll make cuts where they need to and all that. Yeah. Tennessee's a great example. Tennessee was 17th on the 18th nationally. They made $154 million. They spent $157. They're $3 million in the red a year ago because of all the construction projects on campus.
Right.
So it's not just as easy as give the athletes whatever they want. I think $20.5 million is fair. Now, what the argument on the other side is going to be, well, what's also fair is we get whatever people will pay us. And you're not going to stop us, College Sports Commission, from that happening.
Yep.
I still, though, believe it's going to be very easy to trick the system, right? Ultimately, that's going to be the easy part.
And I think it's been easy.
You're going to be really dumb to not be able to fool the system.
But you don't have to. See, I guess my issue is, I think we're going down the same rabbit hole. You don't have to fool the system because you can beat the system in court. All you have to do is lawsuit, and they drop it. You know, and the states will battle it now on your behalf.
Can I give a little preview of what I think is going to happen, Hutton, ultimately?
How long do you think this sets up for us?
Well, and I want to find the person who said the quote.
Okay.
But, okay, so there's this, you've got this new head of the commission, right? It's the guy, Brian Seeley.
Yeah, former college football player.
Brian Seeley he was with Major League Baseball. He was like number 3 in control.
Yep.
He's a former attorney general working out of the federal office in Washington, D.C. He's got a background in investigations. And he has said, and everyone around this has said, it's going to be extremely punitive for those that break the rules if you're found to break the rule. Here's my prediction. Tennessee's going to get rocked first by this. Anyone who challenged the system hardcore will be the first one that's going to be prosecuted in this. And then those schools are going to do exactly what they did before. The ones that fight the hardest are going to fight this the hardest in court.
But they have,
and we're going to be right back into this. And that's why they wanted this the sobriety oath, the pledge, celibacy plan, right? We talked about the pledge,
the abstinence
pledge.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's why they wanted that in advance, because they didn't want to be sued the moment they went after someone for illegal payments.
But still, I see that as the universities that are going to battle as much as Tennessee has their state law behind them.
Yeah.
So you're battling the state, not necessarily the university. Isn't that, you see what I'm saying?
And Brian Seeley has
Jonathan, the Attorney General.
Miraz.
Is that it?
Miraz?
Yeah.
No, Skermetti. Jonathan Skermetti.
Thank
I was
you.
thinking of the guy in Virginia. Was
yes,
Miraz.
The
it's
Commonwealth.
Amazing how many attorneys general that we know now. You know, a year ago I didn't know a single attorney general. Now I know at least 4.
We know a coach.
We do. That then became a politician.
A United States
not an
Senator.
attorney general. But,
United States Senator.
Yeah.
And maybe
but he still likes to be called coach.
I love it. Well, we'll find out if
like Craig T. Nelson.
If things work out, and we hope they do for Senator Tuberville, I wonder if we can still call him coach.
I would hope so.
We'll ask him in 60 seconds. Senator Tommy Tuberville joins us next right here on Hot Mic. Senator Tommy Tuberville joins us live here on the program. Coach, great to have you back on. Hope things are well.
Everything's good.
Did you hear where our big question was? Could we potentially call you coach instead of governor?
Yes. Nobody calls me senator up here. They always call me coach. And I told them, I said, when I become governor, I'm going to still be coach. And hopefully we do as well coaching as we can do, being governor or senator. It's been good up here. I've enjoyed it, but I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to going home and trying to do the best we can for 5 million people in the state of Alabama.
Well, we've certainly impressed with all the visits we've had with you, and we hope things are great in that regard for you as well. Speaking of coach, we were just discussing before you joined us about the House settlement. Overall, you think this sets up where we can actually have a sign of stability in college sports?
Well, sense of reality, you think? What a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20.5 million. Now, I'm going to be interested in who all decides to jump in on this, because you don't have to do it. If you don't, obviously you're going to be in another league or whatever. But 20.5 million, and how much money is going to go to men's sports? How much is going to women's sports? There's going to be a huge lawsuit if the women don't get the same amount, and that's coming.
That's a great point.
So there'll be a lot of lawsuits, but at least we got some clarity on this now. Hopefully, we can use NIL only for when they get there to be able to sell their product themselves instead of being pay for play and recruited with millions of dollars.
And that's what the NIL Go format is for, is to try to sift through all these deals and find out which ones are legit and which ones are pay for play. I'm curious, Coach, do you think this will signal a reduction in what schools are paying coaches now, because they're going to come back and say, we have so much money tied up in coaching salaries, that's going to need to go down if we're going to be able to pay players? Not at every school, but at some of the schools that are going to try to pay this $20.5 million, do you think that's not going to reset things completely, but lower these coaches' salaries?
I think the first thing you're going to do is you're going to have a reevaluation of an entire athletic department. People that are in the front office. I know a lot of schools that have way more people in the front office than they need. That needs to be kind of scaled down. You got athletic directors that are making $1, $2, $3 million. And then you can go on down to the sports. How many sports will there be? Will they cut out Olympic sports, some of the non-revenue sports? I think you're going to see some of that. And then, as you just said, going back to the payment of coaches, it's, I don't, of course, I made pretty good money when I was coaching, but I'll tell you, the salary some of these people are making now is just unbelievable. And yes, if I was athletic director, if I was a president of a university, if I really wanted a good program, I would pay, as less as possible for a good young coaches, and then spend more money on athletes and spend more money on facilities, those kind of things. That would be the way I would look at it.
Well, and we know if everything is driven by money, and you worked at major athletic departments, so you know the inner workings of what your AD may come back and tell you when you want extra budget for this or some more money for that about all the sports they have to pay for on campus. So if you're taking the sports that make the money, do you think we'll eventually go to a place where they're only going to allocate that $20.5 million back to the athletes that make money for the university, and everyone else is going to fall by the wayside? And maybe to be Title IX compliant, we'll have 4 sports and not pay the female athletes anything and just pay men's basketball and football all the money.
Well, again, you're going to go back to a lot of lawsuits, but if they would have their way, a lot of these athletic departments, they would do exactly that. They would put more money into success, into football. Obviously, football is really the only sport that makes money across the country. A lot of these basketball schools, they say that they make money. They don't make a lot of money. They might make some, but it doesn't make anything as compared to what football makes. And it's not just because of football; it's because of the big stadiums and the ticket sales and everything that goes along with it. And then, of course, you throw in your TV revenue, which has really, really gone up. So there's going to be a lot of ifs, ands, and buts there of where all this money is going to go. I would, if I was athletic director, I would pick me a group of athletes to make sure they were involved in deciding where this money goes, to where, at the end of the day, all the athletes can point fingers. Hey, you had athlete participation in deciding where this money goes, and I think you'd cut back on a lot of the lawsuits.
Senator Tommy Tuberville with us. I was with Clay Travis. I know you were this morning, and was with this weekend. We were following the Riley Gaines and Simone Biles back and forth. We were just like, what is this? OutKick was the only outlet that was up in Minnesota with the coverage of a transgender athlete competing in a state championship.
And winning a state championship as a pitcher in softball.
And dominating. And Riley had a post about it. Simone came back over the top with it. This is something that I know the Department of Justice is not standing for. We certainly know where the majority of the country comes down on this. Why do we continue to see this, Senator?
It's nonsense. At least we got a president now that believes the same way that we believe, that women's sports are for women and men's sports are for men. You don't combine them. There's no reason to do that. We have 2 genders. We don't have 64 of them. But for some reason, the Democrats keep pushing this narrative of hey, that it's only right to give everybody an opportunity. Let me tell you something. That young guy that was pitching softball in those games, I mean, those little girls couldn't even see the ball come across. It was absolutely amazing. It was very, very unfair. So they're trying to destroy women's sports for some reason. Now, this is just the far left Democrats. You just have the Democrats up here that they're scared to death of the far left part of their party, so they won't say anything. They keep their mouth closed. But at the end of the day, good will win out on this. There's no reason for us to even have this conversation. I've had 3 bills on the floor, by the way. Not one Democrat's voted for it. And I got another one coming out that says no males and female sports in our academies. That's not going to happen, I don't think, but we need to get that in writing while President Trump is in office, because if you ever get one of these communists back as president again, then you're going to have a huge problem of them changing everything back, these executive orders. So it's just a tough time for women's sports right now. I take my hat off to Riley Gaines. She's been a proponent out there. This young lady, gymnast, I can't remember her name, she's way off base. I mean, if you'd have put a man, one of the top 50 in the world, against her, that she won all these championships, she would be an also ran. You'd never even know her name. So they forget all those things.
And it's if you're pro women, to me that's the opposite of that.
Well, even Simone Biles isn't saying that this young boy, as Senator Tuberville said, in Minnesota should be competing against women.
Right.
She's going personally after Riley Gaines, saying you're sick. You're campaigning because you lost a race. You're a straight-up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports. And then goes on to say maybe a transgender category in all sports. So again, Senator, or Coach, as we should say, to your point, Simone Biles isn't even making the argument that this should have been happening in Minnesota. It's, well, maybe we can find a way to have a transgender category for sports that's separate of men's and women's sports.
Yeah, we've said that all along. If they want to start a section to where they can compete against each other, hey, I'm all for it. They wouldn't get a lot of TV time, but it'd give them the ability to go out and participate against each other. But it's all about fairness. That's what sports is about. Give people a fair opportunity to have success, see who can outwork the other individual or team. And that's what's great about sports. Sports and military are the two things in our country that have made our country great, because you learn from both. You learn discipline, you learn teamwork, you learn all the things that go along with it. The discipline part, of course, the Democrats hate discipline. They hate anything to do with any kind of building or sacrifice. They want to give everybody everything, and it doesn't work.
Coach, it's always great to catch up with you. Keep Clay, keep him safe and away from writing another book while he's up there. Another endorsement for President Trump.
Yeah.
Another pre-sale.
Always feels like he needs to write a book, so maybe he won't do that on this trip.
All right. Well, good to see you guys. Let's talk again soon.
Absolutely. We will.
Thank you, Coach.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
There he is, Senator Tommy Tuberville, Coach.